Okay, so we've all seen her, right? The fun mom on social media. She's the one chasing her kids through the house with this mischievous grin, staging these incredibly elaborate practical jokes, and seemingly effortlessly getting those belly-aching giggles that just look so perfect in a 30-second clip. We're subtly, or let's face it, not so subtly told that being the constant source of our child's joy is the ultimate hallmark of a good mother. But if you've ever felt the absolute crushing weight of trying to perform that fun persona while also managing the laundry, the school schedules, and, the inevitable emotional meltdowns, well, then you know there's a real hidden exhaustion in this hustle for humor. And let's be totally honest with ourselves here. You might even find yourself wondering why your partner can just walk into the room, make literally one silly face, and get the exact laugh you've been working for all afternoon. It is incredibly frustrating, isn't it? You put in all that effort to curate a joyful moment, and they get the easy giggle with zero prep time. Well, don't worry, because there is actually a profound scientific reason for that. And this brings us to what we call the fun mom persona, that heavy cultural pressure to be a constant source of effortless joy. Today, we're going to dive into some groundbreaking research in this explainer that might just be the exact permission slip you didn't know you needed. We're going to look at why science actually says you should stop trying so hard to be the fun mom, and why your unique way of connecting is doing something so much more important for your child's brain and their sense of security. Stick with me here, because point number 3 completely flips the script on how we measure success in our playtime. So let's jump right into section 1, the laughing task study, redefining playtime success. For decades, developmental science has focused almost entirely on how parents respond to a child's distress. We've basically been taught that being a good parent is all about how you handle the tears, the screams, the scraped knees. But a recent study published in the Journal of Experimental Child Psychology, led by researchers Sabrina Schmidl and Jean-François Barrault, decided to look at the completely opposite side of the coin, the positive, playful moments. They wanted to know exactly how mothers and fathers make their preschoolers laugh, and whether that laughter actually strengthens the child's attachment security. To do this, they used something called the laughing task. They took families and literally put them in a room with no toys. The parents were given one simple, yet surprisingly difficult instruction: make your child laugh for 2 minutes. No props, no distractions, just you and your kid. Try imagining being put on the spot like that right now. It's incredibly tough. And just to ground us in the science here, they did this with exactly 144 families with 3 to 5-year-olds. What the researchers discovered through this laughing task with these 144 families reveals a truly fascinating divide in how children bond with their mothers versus their fathers. Essentially, they identified 2 main toolkits that parents use to get those giggles. Let's look at the first toolkit, which they called the touch factor. This is the physical stuff we all know pretty well. Tickling, rough and tumble play, and handling the child. Lifting them up or swinging them around. Both moms and dads use this strategy, and for both parents, it's incredibly effective at producing laughter. So physical play, that works across the board. But it's the second toolkit where things get really interesting, the movement and sound factor. For fathers, this meant using what researchers call verbal incoherence, basically calling a horse a turtle or saying something totally nonsensical, along with surprising the child with sudden movements or norm-breaking behaviors. For mothers, however, actually, scratch that, it wasn't just different, it looked entirely different. It was centered around nursery rhymes, songs like the Itsy Bitsy Spider, and simply smiling and laughing along with the child. All right, moving to section 2, the attachment disconnect, laughter versus security. This right here, this is the core reason you can stop the fun mom performance right now. I really, really want you to hear this, because this is where the pressure completely lifts. When researchers looked at the child's internal working model, which is basically how secure they feel in their relationship with each parent, they found a massive disconnect. For fathers, the amount of child laughter was a direct predictor of secure attachment. The more the child laughed with dad, the more secure the bond. But for mothers, there was absolutely no association between how much the child laughed and how secure they felt. You could literally be the funniest mom in the world, getting constant giggles, and it wouldn't necessarily change the underlying security of your bond at all. Which brings us to section 3, the mechanism of action, why the math is different for moms. So we have to ask the obvious question, looking at that data. Why is the math so different for moms? To understand this, we need to look at how each parent operates fundamentally within the play dynamic. The study suggests that fathers often play the role of the activator. They use what science calls destabilizing play. They surprise the child, they tease them, they push them slightly out of their comfort zone in a way that feels safely dangerous. When a child laughs in this context, it's a signal of deep trust. They're essentially saying, I know you're pushing me, but I know I'm safe with you. This builds the father-child bond through a cycle of challenge and security. But for mothers, the movement and sound factor, those predictable songs and rhythmic nursery rhymes, was directly associated with higher attachment security, even though it didn't necessarily cause more laughter. Just think about that for a second. For you, the rhythm of comfort is more powerful than the shock of the silly. The science suggests that your child views you as a predictable scaffold. When you sing those familiar songs or use facial expressions to narrate a playful moment, you aren't just trying to get a laugh. You're actually providing a sense of order and safety that allows your child to freely explore their emotions. Your child's laughter with you is wonderful, but it isn't the metric of your relationship's health, in the same way it might be for a father who often spends a greater proportion of his limited interaction time in play. I want you to hear this clearly, straight from the research. You aren't failing if you aren't the life of the party in the playroom. You are succeeding by being the anchor of the ship. Now let's get into Section 4, Daily Play Microhabits. Translating science into practice. So, how do we actually translate this complex data into micro-habits for your daily life? We've got the science down, so now let's make it highly actionable for your living room. We're going to focus on 3 distinct play shifts: the rhythm rule, tactical empathy, and the scaffolding smile. Let's break these down one by one to see how they practically change your whole approach to playtime. The very first shift is to embrace the rhythm rule. Instead of trying to come up with new, viral-worthy ways to entertain your preschooler, I want you to lean into the predictable. The study found that for mothers, nursery rhymes and repetitive songs were the key markers of a secure bond. These rituals create a shared language between you two. You don't need a brand new routine. You need the old, familiar one. It's doing the itsy-bitsy spider for the 1,000th time that actually builds the neural pathways of security, not some elaborate prank. The second habit is to practice tactical empathy with yourself regarding what we call the laughter audit. We so often walk away from a play session feeling like we completely missed the mark if the house wasn't echoing with giggles. But the research shows that for mothers, your child's laughter is often just a byproduct. It is not the goal. Your success signal isn't a laugh, it's attunement. It is your child's ability to look at your face and see a calm, smiling reflection of their own world. If you're smiling and they're engaged, the attachment work is being done, whether they are belly laughing or just sitting there quietly content. And the third simple shift is what I like to call the scaffolding smile. The study noted that mothers often use their own laughter and facial expressions to scaffold the interaction, basically helping the child understand the context of the play. So next time you're playing, instead of focusing on what you are doing to be funny, focus on witnessing your child. Use your expressions to mirror their discoveries. This active witnessing is a core part of maternal sensitivity, which massive meta-analysis show is a huge determinant of attachment security. You aren't the performer here. You're the audience and the safety net, all rolled into one. And finally, Section 5, the identity shift, moving from performance to relational infrastructure. You know, we live in a culture that treats parenting like a literal performance, but the science of attachment reminds us that parenting is actually a relational infrastructure. You aren't just managing a 2-minute laughing task in your living room, you're building the internal working model that your child is going to use to navigate every single relationship for the rest of their lives. When you stop trying to be the fun mom and start being the responsive mom, you're giving your child something far more durable than a momentary giggle. You're giving them a secure base. The research by Schmeidel and Burrow reminds us that mothers and fathers often bring different flavors to the attachment relationship, and that is not just okay, it is absolutely necessary. Fathers might be the ones to provide the activation through that destabilizing, norm-breaking humor that builds trust through surprise, but you, as the mother, often provide the consolidation. You're the one who integrates those experiences into a predictable, safe world through song, rhythm, and consistent facial cues. Both are incredibly valid, and both are completely required for balanced development. And hey, if you're worried you aren't doing this perfectly every single minute of the day, I want you to check out this number, 50%. Consistency will always beat perfection. The good enough standard in developmental psychology actually tells us that we only need to be attuned to our children about 50% of the time to foster a healthy, secure attachment. That's it. You don't have to be on every second of the day. You don't have to compete with the fun parent or the highly edited fun version of yourself you see on a screen. The science is crystal clear. Your child doesn't need you to be a comedian. They need you to be a predictable presence. So, the next time you feel that heavy pressure to perform, to make the magic happen, or to be the fun mom, I want you to just take a deep breath. Remember the laughing task. Remember that your itsy bitsy spider is doing heavy lifting that 1,000 tickle fights simply can't replace. You aren't just playing, you're building a resilient mindset. You're building a human being who intrinsically knows they are seen, known, and safe. You are enough exactly as you are, without the punchline. You aren't just raising a child, you're raising a person who knows exactly how to feel secure in an entirely unpredictable world. And honestly, that is the most fun gift you could ever possibly give them. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. What does the secure base look like in your home today? Think about it, reflect on the micro habits we just discussed, and give yourself the grace to just be the anchor. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.